Welcome to the Nightly 5 podcast with Ben O'Shea.
He finishes with a flourish. He spoils a French party. Terrific effort from Goffin. He put up with a lot.
That was a Belgian, David Goffin, at the Roland Garros, the French Open, the famous French clay court tournament, getting booed pretty mercilessly. And it's resulted in a bit of a change to what spectators are able to do. Joining me now to explain is sports editor at The Nightly, Ben McClellan. No more Beaujolais at Roland Garros.
Yeah, some very galling behaviour. So what happened is, the Belgian star was apparently someone spat chewing gum at him after he outed one of the local hopefuls on Tuesday. The French Open has now taken the rather drastic measure of banning booze in the stands. So I don't think they've actually banned the sale of booze, at the arenas or at the courts, but you can't drink them while you're in the seats. It's been a pretty fiery day 5 of the French Open. So Novak Djokovic had a run-in with a heckler, which he then took up with the umpire to try and get the point replayed, but was unsuccessful. Of course, he then went on to win. Kokkinakis played out yet another epic. He came back from 2 sets down to win a massive 5-set match. He also got in a spat with a spectator where he called one of them. He asked who was the wanker who had been yelling at him. So obviously tennis has gone from being, I guess, a rather muted affair from the crowd in days gone past to almost like a rugby league or AFL style crowd. It's rather raucous. Unsurprisingly, booze appears to be playing a factor in that. And so the French Open has, like I said, has implemented this ban. We'll see how heavily that's enforced, whether fans will get the message. And they've also told umpires to be more strict with the crowd to protect the players. Because obviously, as you know, with tennis, it's definitely silent when they're playing out these points, or it's supposed to be. And then in between the points, it gets really, really loud. And the players, are meters from that front row. So, it's some pretty interesting scenes. Alex de Minaur had an easy 3-set win. So the Aussie males are looking quite good. I'll be surprised if Kokkinakis can keep this up. He's played 2 epic. He's played 10 sets of tennis in effectively 2 days. He's into the round of 32. It'll be interesting to see if he'll be able to keep up this marathon man type effort.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be following it very closely. Now let's talk Alistair Clarkson.
Yep.
Now he's been in a bit of trouble this week for.
Well, he hasn't been.
Well, he seemed like he was going to be in trouble, but now he's been cleared.
Yeah. So during their loss to Port Adelaide, one of the 11 losses the Kangaroos have suffered this year, he was down on the bench, and coaches like to do that, particularly when things aren't going well, to try and inspire their troops at ground level. Clarkson has an interesting way of doing that. It would appear foul-mouth rants is the way of motivating his team. So he's used an F and a C word, which of course I won't repeat here on air because we're a family program. And that was uttered after an umpire made a decision and near the umpire's bench, because I was unaware of this, but the umpires have their own little bench, which is great. And so he's uttered this phrase. The AFL's mounted an investigation, which of course they love to do.
Is it against the rules to swear at your own team?
Well, what they were investigating was that directed at the umpire's bench, and was it therefore disrespectful for the umpires? Alistair, of course, says no, he was just swearing generally. Yeah. though that particular phrase is only generally uttered at about when you're aiming it at one particular individual, if I can put it that way. Anyway, they've done this investigation, which they couldn't determine who he'd sworn at, so. He's apologised to the AFL. He's already on a sort of suspended 2-match ban from the homophobic slur that he made earlier in the year. So things aren't going very well for Clarko. He was supposed to come in and save North Melbourne, but it would appear that North Melbourne are unsavable.
Yeah, well, and once upon a time, you'd say the same thing about the Blues, but they're flying high at the moment. They knocked
Yes.
off Port last night in Adelaide. What are the other big games you're looking at this weekend?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a ripping game tonight. Collingwood, Western Bulldogs. Collingwood are decimated by injury. We've just learnt recently in the last hour that Scott Pendlebury has been ruled out for a month, so we knew he wasn't going to play tonight because he's got a bicep issue. But now that looks like it's a longer-term injury. They're already without Jordan De Goey. So a lot of their stars are missing, which puts a lot more pressure on, say, the Nick Dacos's of the world, who obviously flew very high last year because there are these veterans and big-name players firing, but now a lot of pressure comes on him and others to really step up. The Western Bulldogs are in really good form after struggling earlier in the year. There also is a bit of talk around Rory Lobb, who's the ruckman who Beveridge just won't play, but he is playing this tonight. He wants out of the club. Bailey Smith apparently is being offered big money or will be offered big money by other clubs. So his future looks uncertain at the Bulldogs. He's out injured. So that's looking like probably a match of the round tonight. With both sides, in that middle part of the ladder, really needing that win.
Yeah, lots of storylines out of that one. Talking about storylines,
Yes.
Let's talk Origin.
Yes, we haven't talked Origin.
Coming up next Wednesday. So there was a notable absence from Blues training earlier this week. Nico Hines, calf injury. Is he back?
Yeah, he's up in training. So he didn't play on. He didn't train on day one up in the Blue Mountains. So Madge Maguire's taken them up there to commune with nature. It'd be pretty cold up there too. The Blue Mountains is a very cold part of New South Wales. But yeah, so Hines obviously has massive concern around his calf. He did start training with the team yesterday. He's expected to play next week. I've just seen come in on the wires that Luke Keary, who was brought into the squad as effectively cover for Hines, he's been released to go back and play for the Roosters. So that's obviously a massive sign that Madge Maguire, the coach of New South Wales, Michael, is confident that Nico Hines will play. And it's obviously shaping up as a ripping season series opener. 6 debutants for New South Wales. Dylan Edwards has come in for Teddy Tedesco at fullback. We've got a really interesting piece that we're running in the nightly tonight. We'll obviously be online about Dylan Edwards and his rise to New South Wales fame. It was pretty interesting. He's a player who's already won 3 NRL titles, was a Clive Churchill medalist, so best on ground at a grand final, and hasn't been able to play and hasn't really played representative football. He has played for Australia.
Unlucky, really. He's had Turbo in front of him.
Yeah, well, not just Turbo, but also Tedesco.
Yeah.
And Tedesco has been given the chop, which has obviously been a talking point all week. So there's a lot of pressure on Edwards to perform. We've spoken to his schoolboy coach, who says, he always had it in him, played at grades above his age, and always wanted to win. So he's obviously got that country boy toughness, which is what you need in Origin. Though disappointingly today, Ben, I've seen Jerome Luai, who had gotten a good old stink with Reece Walsh, your boy, last year, saying that, he wants to let that sort of aggro go, which is really disappointing because... Is that not what Origin is about?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Blokes biffing other blokes.
Yeah, historically, Queensland have never done that well in some of those on-field biffs.
Yeah, but they don't really biff anymore.
No, there's a bit of pushing and shoving. Yeah. That's about it. But you want it to be spirited, which I'm sure it will be. I think Edwards at the back there is he's gonna be on the receiving end of some towering bombs and big hits. So we'll see how he goes on debut. I love a New South Wales fullback on debut in Origin. It's going to be very interesting. No doubt we'll talk about it some more on Monday. Sports editor at the Nightly, Ben McClellan. Thanks for joining us.